Today we're going to talk about robot monitor calendars and how they can be used to qualify your thresholds and change if and when you get notified when something goes wrong. The business issue that a robot monitor calendar will help you address is those times when you don't want to be notified when, for instance, a subsystem or job goes down because of a normal condition. For instance, maybe the subsystem goes down because of a nightly backup, or maybe a certain job ends on your system because you're doing nightly processing. The steps involved in creating a calendar is, first of all, to create a calendar rule. The calendar rule defines the effective days and times that the calendar will apply. That rule or rules can then be assigned to a calendar. The third step is to then associate that calendar with what I'll call a substitute threshold, and we call that a threshold selector. Finally, you're going to take that threshold selector and assign it to a specific monitor or data definition. The finer points of robot monitor calendars are, first of all, that a threshold selector is specific to a single monitor that you assign it to. It's not global. For instance, if you assign it to a particular subsystem, it doesn't apply to all your subsystem monitors. However, multiple monitors of the same type, for instance, all your job monitors or subsystem monitors or CPU monitors, can use that same threshold selector. So the threshold selector is specific to the monitor type. And likewise, the calendar that you created in step 2 above, that can be assigned to multiple threshold selectors. So if you've got jobs going down, subsystems going down, maybe you want to also qualify CPU monitoring, etc., that all can be based on a single calendar that you created. Let's take a look at how this is set up in Robot Monitor. What we're looking at here is my production dashboard, which has two of my IBM partitions listed, Academy and Wisdom. Those are considered my production systems. All of the color coding that you can see here is because of thresholds. We have another Robot Monitor tip video that talks about how to work with thresholds. Now we're going to talk about how to qualify those thresholds using a calendar. Step 1 is to create a calendar rule, and that's done under the calendars option. You'll see two tabs, calendars and calendar rules. Now I've previously created a calendar rule that specifies that we don't want to get notified from 5 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I've selected the start time, how many hours it applies, what days of the week it applies to, and then also a valid date range, otherwise it's always valid, and this allows you to do one-off type calendar rules. Step 2 is to create a calendar to apply the rule to. So I've created a calendar called No Alert 5/8, and I've chosen my 5 to 8 Monday through Friday calendar rule to be part of this calendar. One tip here is there's a preview tab where you can look to see where your calendar with its associated calendar rules applies. So we recommend doing this before you start applying your calendar out to various threshold selectors. Next step is to apply this now to what's called a threshold selector. Let's go do that. I'm now in my system view for Academy. So I'm only looking at metrics for a single system, but under item selection I'll be able to see all the metrics that are being collected over all my partitions. And what I'd like to do is work with my QProgrammer subsystem monitor. Let's look at the properties. So currently my global thresholds for my subsystem monitoring is using the default threshold set that is assigned automatically when you create a subsystem monitor. And the subsystem down threshold says right here we're going to send a message out to the IBMI message queue for Robot Monitor called MonTHR. We're also going to send out an alert to robot alert to my desktop email. And likewise, we're going to color code this in pink. So I don't want any of that notification to happen from 5 to 8 Monday through Friday when my QProgrammer subsystem goes down. So how do we do that? First of all, we need to create a set of thresholds that will not notify, and maybe give the operations staff a little bit more information about what really is going on. So an easy way to do that is to click on Create a Copy, select the default that's currently being used for this metric, and then modify it to your needs. So what we'd like to do is say do not notify Monday through Friday 5 to 8, threshold for subsystem status. And then I'm simply going to take my down threshold and I'm going to uncheck send a message. I'm going to take out my robot alert interface. And I may even add additional information like subsystem is down for maintenance, normal condition. And I'm going to paste that into my short description too, just to be consistent. Now I'm going to save that. The next step is to associate this threshold now with what's called a threshold selector and assign the calendar to it. So I'm going to say OK to save that. Now I'm going to go back into it and I'm going to click on Select a List, create a threshold selector, and this is going to be my Monday through Friday 5 to 8 selector for subsystem status. I'm going to add my calendar and I'm going to select the new set of thresholds that I created to not notify me. And this is also where you could, for instance, change the colors that are part of this threshold that you created, and likewise, as you saw, we changed the text values that are going to be displayed. You can take a look at the valid times for this substitute threshold by clicking on the checkbox, and that looks correct. If we're not in the Monday through Friday 5 to 8 date and time range, then we're going to use the standard default threshold for subsystem status, and I can edit that here. All right, let's save that, and then let's select it. Monday through Friday, here it is, threshold selector for subsystem status, Monday through Friday, 5 to 8. Let's test the notification that we get now with this modified rule. First of all, it's not 5 o'clock yet, so I'm going to change the calendar rule temporarily to be 2 o'clock. Now I'm going to end the QProgrammer subsystem. And likewise, I'm also going to display the message queue that's devoted to Robot Monitor. You can see there's no messages. Normally we would get a message if QProgrammer ended. All right, the subsystem is down. You can see we've put some text into the indicator in the GUI saying, you know what, that's normal, Monday through Friday, 5 to 8 p.m. Of course, we're simulating that now, being that it's just a little bit after 2 o'clock. And likewise, if we look at the message queue, we've got no notification that that subsystem is down because it's normal. Theoretically, it's Monday through Friday, 5 to 8. Let's take a look at another example. In this case, I have a subsystem called T24, and I have a number of jobs that run under that subsystem. Now, I've already modified the global thresholds to have a threshold selector called T24 Subsystem Maintenance, and it looks like this. When the subsystem is down, we're simply going to say down for maintenance, in the description. So that's what we'll see here in the GUI. And likewise, I've applied the same calendar but to a different threshold selector for all of my various jobs. So this threshold selector is strictly for job status now, but it's going to have a similar piece of text in the GUI. But once again, no notification will be sent out, no message, no robot alert email. Okay, let's end the subsystem and see what happens. I've now ended the T24 subsystem, and of course all the jobs running in that subsystem are ended as well. And as you can see, we've got very specific text showing up in the GUI, and likewise in my message queue, no notification. Perfect. That's exactly what we want because this is a normal condition Monday through Friday, 5 to 8. If you do have any additional questions on robot monitor calendars, please reach out to product support. Thanks for listening.